Whoa! Whoa. What the hell is happening right now? Digging into the history books today. Well, with the Julia Child twist.
Oh! Bon appetit.
Hello, and welcome back, everyone. This is my home. It's your home for a brief moment in time. We're going to be making what is called Napoleon's chicken, and you're going to find this in the Way to Cook cookbook. Of course, Julia Child's magnum opus. It's called Chicken Marengo. Now, this was Napoleon's favorite dish. Well, there's a fable around the origin of this thing. As Julia says, Napoleon's amusing and legendary dish, created especially for him, so they say, after the famous battle. And the battle was Marengo. As the story goes, after this fight, he was feeling a bit peckish, and his chef whipped up chicken Marengo with whatever ingredients they had available, and voila, here we have it. Well, not exactly this. This is Julia's version of one. So the recipe here is detailed enough, but also kind of vague. And luckily, Julia in her TV show features Napoleon's chicken. So I was watching along to that and, making notes, comparing it to this thing here, and they are kind of different at points. So you might be asking yourself, well, why aren't you following along to the French chef cookbook? Because that has all the recipes from her TV show, right? Up until a certain point, and then it just cuts off. And the episode I was watching was, Julia was in color, which means that it was relatively speaking, a newer episode, and it wouldn't be featured in this book. So, what I'm trying to say is I'm gonna take elements from this recipe here, I'm gonna take elements from the recipe that she was following in the TV show. This could be the best of both worlds. Are we on the same page here? Let's get to work. So I don't think things need to get out of hand today. Providing you're prepared for what you're about to do, you have all the ingredients ready for you by your side before you start cooking, it's gonna go smoothly. So I got a 3-pound chicken today. I'm gonna break it up into 8 pieces. Separate the leg from the breast. Spine, go away. Find where the ball joint is between the drumstick and the thigh. And there it is. Cut through, bada bing. And then she says you can cut this ball joint tip off. It's the French way of doing it, apparently. If any bony nubbings on your drumsticks, those can go away too. There we have it. So the lower third of the breast and part of the wing, where that ball joint is. 2 drumsticks, left and right side of the breast, with the wings and a little more of the breast, and the thighs. C'est ça. So white cap mushrooms, take the biggest ones. The mushrooms have all... Jeez. Okay, well, we hope, right? Everyone's okay. We're doing okay in here. I'm just removing the stems from the mushrooms. However many mushrooms this is, I think it's around 12. It's probably 4 too many. But it's because I wanted some of these stems here to chop the stems up into little pieces. Use a bigger knife if you want, but this is what I'm using. Now she's saying that you want to flute these mushroom caps. With a sharp paring knife, I'm kind of scraping down and rotating the mushroom, and hopefully I have something at the end of this. Never done this before. That's terrible. This is just kind of like a aesthetic look to it for decoration to make them look a little more fancy. Everywhere I've looked, it says it's a lot of practice to flute these mushroom caps because there's a specific way of holding the knife and rotating it to make this kind of a spiral pattern. So let's try it out. I'll go a bit slower and see what I get here. It's so freaking hard. I rotate the knife and it should kind of, I suck at this fluted stuff. You're gonna have to work on that until you get it right. It's not gonna happen today. And I don't have enough mushrooms to toy around with. So we're abandoning the fluting of the mushroom. But it was like, I was watching videos. It's like you hold the knife like that and you kind of, something that would impress old Napoleon. But at the end of the day, this isn't gonna impress him. So let's abandon that and just keep our mushrooms looking smooth. Julia uses the mushroom stems to go in with the recipe. So that's what I'm gonna use these failed attempts at. So I should mention something because it was a big omission in the cookbook. that Julia doesn't mention mushrooms for this dish. Any other recipe I can find, including the one that Julia is using for her show, she has the mushrooms. Seems like an important thing to include. So I have around 2 pounds of tomatoes that I'm gonna drop it into boiling water for about a minute. I mean, it is not tomato season, I fully realize that, but these are the freshest tomatoes I could find, and honestly, they didn't look half bad. Cut the stems out, peel these tomatoes, basically just come off. Yep. Slice them in half horizontally, de-seed these things, so if you toss me the sieve, thank you. Just kind of squeeze them out, and it's messy and it's a nuisance, but Julia says, you know, it's gonna look better, and they're kind of just unpleasant to have in your dish. And you know, we're serving it for Napoleon as well. He's not gonna want the seeds. But also, if you just don't care the way I don't care, then just leave a couple in and don't tell anyone. And she just roughly chops. I was thinking, you know, since it's not tomato season, maybe using a couple canned tomatoes would also help add a little flavor to this thing with the juice that comes in with them. So we'll add to the sauce nicely. And let's just kind of do the same thing. Remove the seeds if you want. I don't want, but I will, just out of kindness. And she says you can add a bunch of canned tomatoes if you'd like, just not all canned tomatoes, or the flavor's gonna be too strong. Julia has a very roughly chopped half an onion. Very interesting addition to this dish is shrimp. And we keep it in the shell. I got 6 of them. So I got a whole bunch of slices of baguette here that I will have off to the side with 4 eggs. And I'm gonna take a little bit of the baguette now, dunk it into the tomatoes. With my favorite pan. It's my brazier, and I'm using this one because I'm gonna try to keep this as close to a one-pot meal as possible. I don't think it is gonna be one, but as close as possible. So 2 tablespoons of olive oil. So olive oil is the oil of choice for this dish. The Battle of Marengo was in Italy. Probably has something to do with that. Chicken skin side down. There you go, there you go. You know, that is the perfect amount, I think, for today. Let's just leave the wings out of this. Saute the chicken. Leave them in there until they start browning nicely on each side. All right, so many splashes of oil to the face, and 10 minutes later, this chicken looks fantastic. 1/4 cup of white vermouth, in it goes. Or white wine, whatever you got on hand. Cover that, cook just like this for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, in goes around a tablespoon of cognac, and a little for good luck. And light it up. I know you can't see the flame, but it's there. After a very disappointing yet effective flambe, 1/2 cup of very roughly diced onions. Point with the onions is not to brown them, but just to soften. So this is gonna take another 10 minutes or so. So leaving it with the lid off this time. After another 10, I'm gonna remove the chicken. So if you wanna degrease the pan now, is the time to do it. It's optional, but since I added way too much olive oil to begin with, I'm gonna exercise the option. So our roughly chopped mushroom stems and failed fluted mushrooms, 2 garlic cloves, crushed into smithereens. You know what? I said 2, but I'm gonna make it 3. I'm not driving. Usually say that with the bay leaves, right? But the garlic works too. A 1/2 cup of dry white wine. More wine, yes. Like I said, the Battle of Marengo happened in Italy. Julia recommends Italian seasoning, around a teaspoon worth. This is just my thought here, but I'm gonna cook the wine down just a bit before I do anything more. All those tomatoes, it was like, what, 2.5 pounds in the end? All the stuck on chicken bits and the fond. Scrape up the fond while you're simmering. Turn the heat back down to medium, and the chicken goes in. It's due time to salt, pepper. I'm feeling a bit frisky with the Italian seasoning, so a little more of that too. The tomatoes need to exude their juices. cover it 15, 20 minutes. But since this is a cooking show, I'm gonna shuffle this over to this burner. That's because I got more work to do here. Saucepan. Here, I think I'm gonna add in, I don't know, what the hell is going on? I think it's half a cup of wine. I'm just gonna do, I don't know, that. And then in go the mushroom caps. And what the white wine does with that is keep these white while I cook them like so. So after like 5 minutes, you gotta remove these. You don't want them to get like waterlogged, soggy. As Julia says, you don't want them to flatten like flattened umbrellas. You know what? I'm gonna keep them up there in the turned off microwave, but it's like hot enough that it's gonna keep them warm. Small saucepan. Get that heat on. I'm gonna glug in around a cup worth of olive oil. We're about to do something pretty awesome. This needs to be very hot, but not to the point of smoking. Firstly, I'm gonna deep fry these rounds of baguette, a couple at a time. I'm not really sure what I'm looking for here. I think you're just trying to fry them up. I don't know if you're looking for a specific color or anything, but I feel like this could be done a different way because I don't know how I'm supposed to brown that if it's not touching the metal. All right, I'm gonna pull the operation on those, but we do have other things to do with this oil. Like I'm gonna deep fry an egg. Whoa, whoa. What the hell is happening right now? This is what she said to do, deep fry a freaking egg. Okay, well that's what I'm doing, Julia, is deep frying an egg. So I'm doing one egg at a time and it's about a minute in total. Flip it over, you top heavy bugger. Okay, I gotta get you out. It's been more than a minute, we gotta get you out. Do you not have a slotted spoon? Where's your slotted? Get it next time, okay? All my experiments are gonna go on the baking sheet lined with paper towel. Julia experiments with different ways of adding the eggs into the oil, so we'll just do the same. Here's a second egg. This is the strangest thing, guys. Flip it over if you can. I don't know, it puffs up, it gets all bubbly. And, whoa! Remove the egg, Julia. Prior to today, I had no idea this was even a thing. We're not done with the olive oil just yet. In go the shrimp. Do a couple at a time. Frying these 1 to 2 minutes until they start to curl up. Here they go, changing their color. Probably okay to add all the shrimp. 4 in there, 6 in total. Let's do this. Like 30 seconds to a minute per side. You be the boss. On to the paper towel. That can go off the heat. All these great things going on right here with the eggs and the shrimp. I'm gonna keep these warm on the lowest setting in the oven. Just wanna keep them warm. Okay, so I do know I was trying to limit the amount of pans I was using for this. Just gonna get some oil from the deep frying and into the pan. And a little more, please. I love to brown these baguette rounds the right way. That's better. I'm gonna get those into the oven with everything else. Realizing how stupid it is to have paper towel in the oven. So I'm gonna turn the oven off. While everything has been happening, I've been keeping an eye on this. How does it taste? A couple more hoots of salt. I mean, obviously the number one question would be, is the chicken cooked through? Of course it is. The amount of time this was sitting on the heat while I was doing all those other things feels super tender and perfect, so I wouldn't change a damn thing. That's hot. This is what I'm thinking. Let's remove everything. In the oven with everything else, keep it warm. Because I think this is the most ideal way to serve this thing based on the tools I have in this kitchen. Let me wash this out. Ah, that's hot. Place the chicken in there nicely, skin side up. Cool. And remove random bones sticking out of the chicken. Place the tomato sauce over top. Black olives go on top. Oh yeah, okay, this is starting to look interesting. Everything's been keeping warm. Between each piece of chicken goes a bread round. Dab these deep fry eggs and place one on every other bread round. Does that work? Does the math work? Not really, but make it look like you're placing one on every other round. The shrimp go onto each round that isn't covered with an egg, even if one doesn't have an egg. Okay, this is kind of a lone wolf. This one can share a crouton. Yeah, room for another shrimp. I'm gonna throw that in the center. Lastly, the mushroom caps, and then those can be strategically placed around. Chop parsley on top of each egg, just for a pop of color. Order up! Start off with a little bit of everything in one bite. Whoa, it's one juicy looking thigh right there. You have to discover each little corner of the plate here. There's a lot going on. Makes you stop and think. That was awesome. And as many things as was going on with that plate of food, I can't pick apart one thing. Okay, maybe one thing. I could have eased up on the simmering of the tomatoes and their juices. Yeah, I could have used a little more of that. All right, can I be honest with you for just 1 minute about olives? Obviously, those are Kalamata olives. She tells me to use the Niçoise olives, the black olives. I couldn't find them while I was out, so I was like, you know what, I'll just stick with the Kalamata. It's close enough for today's purposes. Honestly, they were great. The tasty sauteed chicken, still juicy and tender, all of it, including the white meat. That even surprised me, but all of it was. Initially, when I was looking at this photo, the eggs and the shrimp, you know, I thought they were gonna be some odd choices on the plate, but I thought those were some of the standouts. Obviously, the hints of olive oil running through the whole thing too. You know, it's a ballsy move this day and age, deep frying something in olive oil. In this economy, the flavors going on with that tomato sauce is sweet and tangy just to cap it all off. She says here it's quite a marvelous combination, and I couldn't agree more. Napoleon? That dish has got it going on. This was Jamie and Julia. Bon appetit. Au revoir.